you doing, my stargazers? Welcome back to Star Lordess Podcast. Are you ready for tonight's show? Tonight's going to be a good one. We have a death doula here to tell us basically what that is and explain, maybe answer some of your questions. So, yeah, it's going to be a good night. Are you ready for tonight's show? Tonight's going to be Okay, we're just going to wait a couple of minutes for the guests to pop in. And I already see in the chat my dear sister is here, Miss Ninja, and I'm hungry now. Thank you to the mods for their wonderful work. And I see Ninja has to dip out in a little bit, but that's okay. At least you showed up to do an early part of the podcast, and you can always catch the rest of it later in the replay. So, how's everybody doing tonight? I see. Oh, Priscilla's here. Good evening, Priscilla. This is the only time I really get to address the chat until the end of the evening because I'm usually busy with my guests. So, it's nice to be able to see you guys. There's 12 here in the room, but not everybody's talking. So, for the rest of you who are not in the chat, welcome. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's podcast with my special guest. We've got Kim Bassett, from Wisconsin. Welcome. Welcome, Kim. And Ruth, of course. Hi, Ruth. How's it going? How's the weather in New York? I always ask you that. Every week I ask Ruth this question. So, how's the weather where the rest of you are? Priscilla, how is the weather where you are? I'm not sure where you're from. Oh, you lost your sweet dog, Priscilla, this morning? I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness, it's just the worst. Mama Bear! Oh, Mama Bear. Okay, so yeah, we see you in the chat now and we're saying hello to you. So Ruth says it's cold in New York, 22 degrees. Yeah, that is a little on the chilly side. Yeah, so sorry to hear about the loss of your dog. It's the worst, I'm telling you. Ugh, they just are so pure and innocent and just love us unconditionally. And when we lose them, it's got to be one of the most heartbreaking things. It really is. So Priscilla says 12 inches of snow on the ground. Where are you from, Priscilla? Okay, we've got another one other than Mama Bear from Florida. Good evening to you, Kathy. Oh, you're welcome, Priscilla. I'm glad you could come here and be a part of the chat this evening because you're going through some grieving right now and probably a good topic for you. Oh, Connecticut. Okay. So our guest should be arriving here any minute now. Southwest Florida, beautiful. Oh, nice. But it's raining, hey? Hey, Mama Bear, it's raining there. Why is it always raining? Okay, so everybody's gathering in the chat here. Our guest will be joining us momentarily, just waiting for her to come on the screen. Oh, is it raining in California too, Ninja? Okay. So, how are y'all doing? You really liking these podcasts? I noticed that a lot of you, the same people in the audience, keep showing up week after week. So you must be liking, we must be doing something right over here. Yeah, of course, Ninja. Yes, Ninja, I spoke to, or didn't speak to Reina, but sent a message to her earlier, and she did mention she was going to be coming on a little bit later. So, I'm so grateful for the mods. These guys are absolutely amazing and keeping on top of everything, and greeting all the guests who come in. And looks like our guest for this evening has arrived. Please help me welcome in from coming to us live from Manitoba, Canada, Linda Lamoreaux. And here she is. Welcome, Linda.
Hello, hello, hello.
How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm pretty good. You look lovely as usual.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, okay, we're gonna be getting into a little bit of a serious topic, but also interesting nonetheless, right?
Definitely, yes.
So back when I first met you about 5 years ago, you had a different job than what you have now, but you were looking to get into something different. So tell us how this came about. Did you get a calling to do what you are now doing, or how did this happen?
Well, so it actually, my interest in death, dying, bereavement started actually quite a while ago when I was doing my social work degree. I did one of my first placements on a palliative care ward. And I had the most amazing field instructor who knew just what to say to me, my first patient that I worked with, he knew who to give me.
Mhm.
And that first patient of that, I know I'm dying. He says, but I'm not dead yet.
Mm.
So I'm glad that you're here. So let's talk. So I'm like, his name was Sid. He was an older man. I can't even remember what he was what he was dying from, but I'm like, okay, Sid, what do you want to talk about? And from there, it was kismet, I think.
Wow. And
Yeah.
what year was that? Like, how long ago was that?
That would have been in 2000 2003.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
2002, 2003. Yeah.
So when
And
did
then
you really start, like, getting into it as a career?
then it gets my yeah, so the other career was either schools or
Mm. Right.
um yeah, so it just so happened at that time school position came up first, and so that's what I went with. But yeah, these last few years, it was not as fulfilling as I'd hoped it would be. So, but well, 5 years ago, my dad ended up passing away, and it wasn't great. We were there, family, friends were there, and then just over 3 years ago, my mom passed away, and during the time where nobody could really be there, but my niece and I were allowed to be in the room with her, and it just it wasn't didn't feel right. I mean, my mom died, so that never feels right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I kept thinking, no, there's got to be something that people can do, so that they don't have to experience death that way. It can be more
Right.
personable, more of their own journey.
Mm.
So yeah, so I don't know if we just talk and Facebook hears what we say, but I don't know, like a few weeks after my mom died, I started getting advertisements for Death Doula,
Oh, wow.
and school, college, or like the course and stuff. So like probably about 3 months after my mom died, I took the course to be a death doula.
Oh, wow. That fast, eh? It just
Yeah. Yeah.
I you just knew that that was the right thing to do, that's what you wanted to do, and you just moved the opportunity was there, you just moved into that moment, eh?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And so it's been 3 years now you've been doing this?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
So let us know some of the experiences that you've had. I mean, I have so many questions. I'm sure the audience will have questions as well, but just some of the experiences that like I think I asked you this before about like you're there for the person passing, not so much there for the family. You're not a grief counselor, but you can sort of help them with that, or is that a completely different department?
Well, as it turns out, I'm both.
Mhm. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yes. So as a death doula, I'm there for the person who is dying.
Okay.
And usually people will. So being a death doula, it's not new. It's been around forever.
Mhm.
Um, but it's, I guess, getting more well known in the
Right.
recent years. So the sooner the person who's dying can work with someone who is a death doula,
Mhm.
um, I don't want to say the easier the journey is, but I think it helps put them more at ease, like more at ease quicker, because we help with if there's any paperwork that still needs to be done, like advanced care directives or powers of attorney, or even
Oh,
like banking issues, um, any of the legal formal stuff that needs to be done. If they don't know about it, we'll just
mm,
make sure that to help them get the ball rolling. And then there's
mm,
other things like legacy uh, projects that they can do, which is, it can be anything. It can be, planting trees with their families. It can be doing videos,
mhm.
writing letters for each member of their family or friends that they want to, leave letters for. It's a range of anything, as whatever we can do to help make their death journey more um, peaceful
Peace.
is what we try and do. Yes.
And
Yeah.
it totally makes sense too about the helping and aiding because I found this before when, the family members and loved ones pass away, and then you have to deal with the technical part of it, the papers and all that stuff. It can be very, very overwhelming for people because it's like, no, I just need to grieve now. I don't need to be filling out forms. Thank you very much. So
Yes.
if there is somebody there like that, huge help, and I'm very glad that there are death doulas out there and it's becoming more mainstream. There's someone in the chat here, Mama Bear, she's a good friend of mine from Florida, and she had told me a long time ago when we first met that she was a birth doula.
Mm,
So,
mhm.
I guess birth doulas do kind of they assist the mom giving birth and so forth, right?
Right.
So, it's kind of the same thing, but you're doing end of life stuff and practical things for the person, and, that's absolutely amazing. I also understand you also work with animals too. I know I've been to your magical place, and you have a lot of animals. And so, are you there for them at the end stages for your animals? And what do you do for them to comfort them?
With the animals, oh, it's knowing them. So
Mm,
knowing their mainstream, their base level
right.
of their behaviors, and anything that goes above or below that, just knowing when to, if we need to call a vet in, if we need to help them like transition on their own journeys,
Mm,
um, and having the, I want courage to be able to do that, because it's a very hard thing to do.
yeah.
But just knowing that they've lived a good life. They've been my constant companions forever. They're also my co-therapists when I do therapy. I'm an animal assisted therapist as well. So they've worked hard. They've helped a lot of people. I'm choking up here.
Yeah, I know. you're making me choke up. There is a woman in the chat just before you came on. She was talking about how she had to put her beloved animal down, and I'm just like, I can't. It's so hard. Why is it so hard to talk about this when it comes to? I mean, it's hard to talk about our loved ones passing, but when it comes to our pets, like, wow. That's a tough
Mhm.
one. It is so tough because they do give us that unconditional love, and they're almost like helpless little babies, you know, I guess. They're like little children that never really grow up. We're always looking after
Yeah,
them. And then when the time
and
comes when they have to pass, it's so hard to say goodbye. I remember when Tony and I put down our first dog, our German Shepherd, and I was given some really good advice from one of my best friends, and she said, just keep calm, do not get upset when the needle goes in and you're there. Just keep patting the dog and just tell her how much you know you love her, and try to keep the energy up so that they go peacefully into the other side. And I thought it was really good advice because when I actually had to do it with my girl, it killed me to do it, but at the same time I knew it
yeah,
was for her and she did go peacefully. So
yeah, and it's it's very well, for us, it's selfish if we don't. We're
yeah,
doing it for our own. We're not doing it for our own reasons.
yeah,
We're so if we can, come to terms with, what, it is time. We
yeah,
only get them for a specific amount of time, unfortunately.
yeah.
But we can't be selfish. We have to let them go. So, Mama Bear, my condolences to you. I know that could not have been easy for you.
No, she's that was actually Patricia. Mama Bear
Oh,
was,
Patricia. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Patricia.
Sorry about that.
Mama Bear was the one who was a baby doula, like a,
Oh, baby doula,
yeah,
right.
baby
Sorry
doula.
about that. Sorry,
Yeah, no,
Patricia.
no,
My
it's okay.
condolences
It's
to
all
you.
good. It's very hard to keep it all straight, but you know, it's all good. The people in this chat here are awesome people. My audience, they come back week after week. Well, you've been in the live podcast before. You know that we have the greatest audience and the greatest mods in the
Mhm.
business. I might be a little biased on that one, but I swear they are. They're really good. So anyway, getting back to the doula situation. So you work in a hospital now, in palliative care? Or?
Well, I yes. So so one of the changes I made this last summer was I left the schools completely and I became a palliative care social worker.
Oh,
So I can go into hospitals, but I do mainly community.
okay.
So more and more families and are choosing to die, or people are choosing to die at home if they can.
Okay.
And so I'll go to the home and visit with them, and again do whatever planning they need to do, whatever. I mean, because when you find out that you're dying, you start grieving.
Yeah.
The person who's dying is grieving as well. So doing grief work with the people there, as well. And it's just, I feel so blessed that they allow me on their journey with them. Um, because it's I mean, it is a scary thing. We don't talk about death enough. We don't talk about
Yeah.
dying enough.
Mhm.
And even the family members and friends that are left behind
Mhm.
with their to grieve, it's
Mhm.
not talked about either. It's been a year, you should be over it. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's
It
true.
doesn't happen.
But why, you know what, Linda, why is that though? Why is it hard for people to talk about grief? What are your own feelings about this? Like, do you think it's because if you bring up the death of a person or whatever to somebody, you're afraid that you're going to make them sad, or we don't want to talk about it because we're afraid we're going to start crying? Like, what do you think is really behind the fact that people don't really want to talk about it?
It could, yeah, it could very well be that. It could, in some cases, people just feel that, they've gone on with their lives,
Yeah,
and so this person should as well. Like, whoever the grieving person should as well.
doesn't work,
Um,
that does not work like that at all.
no, it doesn't work like that. And I've worked with many people who have been with their partners for 40 years, for 28 years, And they've been a part of somebody for that long that now they have to figure out who they are in this world without them. And that is so hard to do after that long.
True. That's so
So it's allowing them to tell their story over and over as often as they want, just to help process, because that's how we process. We
right.
need to tell our stories. And I mean, if it's one time, if it's 100 times, tell your grieving story.
You need to work through that to come out the other side, right? Because the only way out of it is through. You can't avoid it because if you keep avoiding it, it's always going to nag at you. At some point, it needs a release, right? It needs to come
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always, well, I tell people who are grieving that, you know, you may be okay right now, but you could be in the middle of Walmart and see a sweater and think, "Oh, Bob would have really loved that," and then realize Bob's not here anymore and just have a complete and total meltdown in the middle of Walmart, and that's okay. That's what you need to do at
Yes.
that time.
Yes,
I
and
mean,
that happens. That definitely happens. Or if something happens and you go to pick up the phone to call the person because it's like, oh, they would really, I got to tell them this news or they would really love the show. And then you realize that's the worst feeling. It's like, oh, they're not there.
yeah.
But it's, yeah, it's,
Yeah,
it's
and
strange
hearing their voice.
that we
Mhm.
have to go through something like that, but, I mean, there is no way around it. Death and taxes are pretty much, a guarantee in life, right? There is no way around it. No one gets out alive, so we
No.
might as well start opening it up and start talking more openly about it.
Yeah,
And as much as it hurts, and sometimes it's okay if it hurts, because if it hurts, then at least you're working through it, right? If you're crying, you're upset, you're feeling some kind of way, you're working through the grief. So it's
yeah.
not a bad thing to bring it up, to talk about it. There, grief counseling. In your opinion, does grief counseling really help people?
Um, well, yes, because I know, so, like I was saying, with people who, they've been, it was a family member, but it might have been somebody that they weren't as close to as the person who's grieving. So the person who's grieving may feel that, what, I don't want to talk to somebody who's going to be tired of hearing me grieve. So
Mhm.
with grief counseling, they can come and they can talk and they can tell their stories however many times they need to tell their stories and process and work through, and just be open and honest and know that they're in a safe place and they can share whatever they need to share.
Yeah.
So and not feel judged.
Yeah, yeah, that's the whole thing about it too. And you don't want to turn people off, like you said. If you start talking to a friend about it, and it's like, okay, they'll listen the first couple of times, but maybe they don't want to keep hearing it over and over and over again. So you don't want to lose that friend. So you don't want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And anyway, what do you think of maybe journaling, or do you think that that helps, like writing out stories, things like that, even your own way? Maybe make a personal video to the person who has passed, those kinds of things. There's a lot of things that a person can do to help you move
Ab
past.
Absolutely. Anything that I've suggested to people that I've talked to, that I've been worked with,
Mhm,
to write letters to the
mhm.
person that died, to, yeah, to do exactly that, videos, even to watch videos. Watch videos of them and just remember those good times.
Yeah,
To Journaling is always a great thing to do. It gets those feelings out. It helps you see them on paper. It gets it out of here.
out of your head, right?
Um, it'll
Make
never Grief doesn't go away. Grief sticks with you all the time. It just looks different.
Mhm.
So that person, whoever you've lost, will always be a part of your life. They'll always be a part of your heart. But
Yeah,
now you just have to find meaning in their death, which is really hard to do sometimes.
yeah.
Um, but find that meaning to help you move on, to help you continue living, because your loved one, I'm sure, would not want you to stop.
No, absolutely. That's a given. I think I'm
Yeah.
very much into the spiritual realm and so forth, and I kind of have always had that sense that people who loved you in life they don't want to see you grieve. Like if say for example, somebody you both loved had passed away and you were grieving, that person feels sad for you. So why would it be any different? Their spirit is still very much around and does not want to see you sad, wants to see you live life again. And they understand the grieving part of it because when they were alive, they grieved people. So they understand that part. And speaking of the spiritual realm, now let's get a little juicy here.
All right.
have
Okay.
you ever seen anything like when you were doing the? I assume you're right with the people at the moment of passing, or
Sometimes,
yeah. Mm,
I haven't. So I have. So any with my clients, I
yeah.
haven't been.
Okay.
But with my mom and with my dad, I was there with them. But no, with them, I didn't see anything. But once in a while around my house, I will see signs. Or I have two daughters, and I whenever we see dragonflies,
Mm-hmm.
we always say that's my mom coming to check up on us. And with my dad, it's when we find dimes.
Times.
He's there, yeah. He's
Yeah.
there. He's checking up on us and making sure we're okay, and that we have a dime if we need it.
Nice. Well, he's looking after you financially as best
Yeah,
as
there you go. Yeah.
well, you might want to remind dad that inflation, maybe drop
Yeah,
$100 bills.
right? I like your thinking. Yeah. Jeepers.
Yeah, remind him, times have changed. It costs a lot more now.
Yeah, it's been like 5.5 years, man. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And inflation's up 100%.
Yeah, right. But yeah,
Um,
no, but I've been in places where things have happened, like like the candle flickers, or just the really cool things have happened, or people have told me that they've smelt a certain scent,
right.
and it's like that's I truly believe that there is something, um
I do. I
you know
do. I absolutely well. I know that this journey is just a short part of our soul's journey. We're just here in the meat suit for a certain amount of time, and then it's time for us to move on. But it's not the end. The soul is endless. It keeps going on.
yeah.
So you're not, like I said, you're not right there with them when at the point of death. When
No,
your job as a death doula is not to be holding their hand. I guess
it
maybe
all
could be
depends. It all
some.
depends on what they want. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if they want me there, then I
Mhm.
will absolutely be there.
Right.
But a lot of times, family, friends, they've got the amazing supports
Mhm.
in place, and that's another thing that I help them do is I make sure they get them in place.
Okay.
Um, but if there's ever a chance that they would want me to be there, oh, I would absolutely be there. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
And they say, and I always tell people too that um, the last sense to go is hearing. So that's other things that we help to set up too. I was working with a couple who they they were together for 20 something years, and they have a son, and she was she went down, like, she progressed quickly. She had cancer, and they were in the hospital, and I said to them, it's okay to put a movie on. That it was near around Christmas, so if you guys watch Christmas movies together, put that movie on. Play Christmas tunes. And they were like, nah, she didn't like Christmas tunes. I'm like, well, then play whatever music she liked. Just
mhm,
make it personal for her, because in hospitals, it is a little bit harder.
yeah,
But if you've got, you've really good palliative care team who knows that it's important to have that comfort and have that, that hearing, that so that when they do die, they've got that in their ears rather than,
mhm.
the beeping or the
Yeah, that
whatever, like the yeah, all the noises from outside of their room. They've got something personal that they can bring with them.
so that's what you're saying then, that the hearing is the last oh, I did not know that. What
Hmm.
so the eyesight goes, sense of smell, and then the hearing is still
Yeah,
oh, very
yeah,
interesting. And how long does that stay until the point of death or
right.
just
Yeah.
oh, hmm.
Yeah.
So, have you ever, talked with any of these people who are, in palliative care and they're sort of towards the end, where they spoke about anything spiritual to you or that they've seen loved ones or things like that prior to death? Because I know that happened with some of my loved
I haven't yet. A lot of the time that when they're that close,
ones.
depending on like sometimes they're really medicated. So family just, they'll put that off and they'll say, "Oh, you don't know what you're saying." And it's like, well, you know what? They probably do. Um, it's just we don't know that. We can't see that because we're not where they are right now.
Exactly.
So I've heard of many things where they say that the room is crowded. We need to get some of these people out of this room,
Mhm.
or where they've said, I need to go pack my bag. I'm going on my journey. I need my bag
Oh,
packed.
okay. Yeah.
Um, there've been, yeah, or they've seen their mom or their grandma or somebody who they don't even know. Like if the room is overcrowded, I'm told that it's usually like ancestors
Right.
who are coming to bring them home.
Wow, that's fascinating. I know when my brother was in the end stages of cancer, he had mentioned that because we had a dog when we were kids. The dog was called, and he was pointing up into the sky, and he's saying to me, "There's Tanny. Don't you see her? She's right there. She's right there. She's with Uncle Bill." And Uncle Bill had also passed away, so I'm like, he's seeing stuff, and he's getting ready. You kind of know close to the end now, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
yeah,
and
for
that's another thing too that as a death doula or even as a palliative care social worker, um, we get people ready, like family members ready as well to
sure.
just to prepare them for what end of life may look like or what it may sound like.
Yeah.
And even with that, like some family members, you can ask them, how was it? Like, how was your dad's death for you? And siblings can say, you know what? He went peacefully. I was appreciative that, he laid there. He didn't look like he was in pain. And then the brother or sister will say, "It was awful. He sounded terrible. I couldn't believe like." And so the two different ways that people even view in the same family even view the death of their loved ones.
Exactly, and that makes sense, different perspectives, right? It's
Yeah.
just where you're coming from. It's kinda like you see 2 siblings who grew up in the same family, and they say one says, "My childhood was awesome, my parents were great," and the other says, "It wasn't. My parents were terrible." So I guess it's just a matter of perspective, right, where the person is coming from.
Yeah.
Hmm,
Yeah.
that's
And
interesting.
how they've dealt with even other things in their lives. Like if things have been, extremely traumatic for one, where the other one's like, yeah, it wasn't all that
Right,
bad,
there's
right? So yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's
gotcha.
all in personality and the way they view life, basically. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. In Canada, there's the MAID program, I'm sure you're aware of, right?
Mhm.
Have you ever been a death doula to anyone in the MAID program?
I haven't. No,
Haven't?
not yet.
Mm,
Um, I I have had a couple of clients who have chosen to do MAID.
mhm,
Um, but once they so when that happens, and I find that for them it was a control thing.
mm,
So because you've got this disease, you've got cancer, and it's wreaking havoc with you, and it's causing you to die. And they can't control that, but
mm,
they can control when they go.
okay, that makes sense. So do you think that well, so far the people you know in the MAID program were ones who had a terminal illness? Because now it's sort of broad range for it. There's people because they're depressed or they're poor or whatever, they're saying are entering into the MAID program. But you haven't encountered any of those people. For you, it's just illness, people with illness.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
mhm,
yeah. I've seen the changing, like they're changing the policies and procedures for that, and
mhm.
I know that's hugely controversial,
Yeah.
and that's why it's taking so long. So I mean, I get it. I absolutely get it. But I feel that when a person does have a terminal diagnosis, it
Mhm.
should be their journey.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
they
Yeah.
need to have control over whatever they can have control over because their bodies they don't have control over their bodies anymore, so
Absolutely, and you know what? It's absolutely horrible for somebody who's slowly dying of a terminal illness, and if they're in incredible amount of pain, I understand that, I really do. Like, we're so, conscious of our pets, like, putting down our pets who are in incredible pain, so, I mean, why would it be any different for humans? When it comes to other things, I think that that's a little bit different because, that's where the controversial part comes in, I think. And that's when it's like because you're depressed or you're broke or you're poor, like what does that have to do with anything? But I also understand people who can't get away from depression and it's a trap. And no matter what they've tried, nothing has worked. I read an article in a paper a couple days ago about a woman in Ontario, I believe it was, who was in that situation, and she's tried everything. She's had shock treatments, everything under the sun, and she's just ready for the MAID program and just waiting for that. So,
mm,
I mean,
yeah.
it is controversial, and it is people have different opinions on all of that. I don't know what I think about it other than I understand because you can't unless you've walked a mile in someone's shoes, you don't really know what they're going through. So who is anyone to say that that person who has a terminal illness or someone who has terminal depression who is living a tortured life? You know what I mean? It's yeah, but I
Yeah.
think it's just, definitely you have to be very careful with something like that
Yeah.
because you can't just take somebody who's going through a bout of depression. That's not the answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, very true. Yeah. And then the people that are left behind to grieve, and
Mhm.
it's yeah, it's huge.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, I guess my next question is, do you enjoy being a death doula? Like, do you feel fulfilled that this is something positive that is adding to your journey in your life? Do you enjoy it?
Oh, I really do. I learn new things every day. And even, even relationship wise with the people that I've been working with, and just seeing how well some of them, the ones who've been together for 30 years, like even just saying that, it's amazing to know that people are still together for that long when you hear, because it's so easy now to just go, right? So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
um and just learning their stories and how they got to where they got to, and it's like I said, it's a such a blessing. I am so grateful and learning so much from them.
Yeah.
That oh, absolutely, I'm so happy with the change that I made, and that I'm meeting the people that I'm meeting, and even the people that I work with on the palliative care team are amazing.
Yeah.
It's just you definitely have to be a certain kind of personality to do this, but I find it very rewarding.
Is there ever points where you feel scared to do the job that you're doing? Do you ever have fear connected to it or you're past that already?
I'm past that. You know what? Like I said, with the very first person that I worked with, Sid, he just made it so clear. He's like, I'm still a person. I just happen to be dying. Let's talk, right?
Right.
And if as a takeaway from this, if you find out that somebody is dying, they want to talk. They do want to talk about their disease and what's happening with them, and they don't want it to be a taboo thing because
Right.
it's happening to them and it's very real and it's taking them away from life, right? So
Mhm.
they don't want it to be swept under the carpet. They just talk about it, or if you're not comfortable saying anything, then just listen to them.
Yeah, that's what I found for a long time. My brother, when he was going through chemo, he was living with one guy, and there a lot of times that's what it was. I just had to let him ramble because he just wanted to ramble.
Yeah.
He was dealing with something that was so horrific and so unexpected. I mean, he was a young man. He was only 46 years old, so it was it was a tough thing. It came out of nowhere, and
Hmm.
all of a sudden it's there, like cancer does, and he just rambled, and then at a certain point, because he had a great sense of humor, he started joking about it, which was perfect because, this was something we could laugh, and that laughter sort of helps alleviate the grief. At one point, he was saying that I should go on tour as a comedian. I'll go out as the boy, And then we all started laughing, and then we started making up scenarios of what he would do on a comedy tour, and stuff.
See,
It
and
was
and that's awesome because he probably felt somewhat normal.
exactly, exactly. That's what it was because when we enjoyed that laughter, it made
Mhm.
us all feel normal. It just felt like we were just laughing at something silly again, and then, of course, a few hours later, the seriousness would kick in again, but at least that's those things are bring us that kind of release, right? It just lets enables us to let go at least for a minute because we can't be in that constant state of grief and readiness. It's not good. It's not healthy for
Yes,
it's not healthy for the person who's sick, and it's not healthy for the people around them, you know?
exactly. Yeah. And
Mhm.
too, I've talked with couples who, um, the whichever one is like is not dying,
Right.
all just stops talking to the partner, the one that is dying,
Mhm.
and just stops telling them their problems, telling them their issues,
Mhm.
telling them why, why they're upset that day. Everything's fine. I'm fine. The
Right.
situation's fine. It's all good. I'm good.
Yeah.
And I've said to them and I'm thinking of one couple in particular, I just said, "Well,
Mm.
so you're still married, right?" "Yeah." "And you have been for a long time, right?" "Yeah." "And she's still here. She's not dead yet, right?" "No." "So why wouldn't you still tell her your problems? Why wouldn't you? She's still your wife. She still wants to." And I looked at her and said, Do you want him to still talk to you?" And she's like, "Well, absolutely." I mean, she had a few, choice words in there
Mm.
because she was awesome.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
she was like, "Absolutely, I do. I mean, I'm still here."
Yeah.
So, and that's another thing. Like, yep, you're grieving your
Mhm.
partner's dying, but you're still there. You're still partners. You can still talk to each other.
Yeah, and that's important, but yeah, absolutely what you said totally. When you're around, first of all, like in my brother's case, like a lot of his friends stopped coming around because it wasn't because they didn't care about him, but because they felt awkward and they didn't know what to say to him. Other than, "Hang in there, you can beat this, blah, blah, blah," the usual stuff, but it's just like they don't wanna come around, and it's not because they didn't care, I knew that, it was because it would break their heart to be around him, and they're afraid of saying the wrong thing, and another thing, why do people, feel like they have to walk on eggshells around people with terminal illness? They feel like they can't say what they really need to say around them.
Very true. Yep.
Yeah.
Some people, if I say it, it's going to be final.
Yeah.
If I, some people don't
Mhm.
want to see the person on their like close to their death. They don't want to see that. They don't want to remember them that way. And I mean, that's fair. That's fair. And I'm sure that if the person who is dying understands them and knows their friends, they get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, because everybody is different. Everybody's absolutely different. And yeah, I mean, they might see the death as something that was just absolutely freaking traumatic.
Mm,
Whereas, a loved one who's closer to them would be like, no, he was good. He went peacefully. He
yeah.
heard us laughing. We had like when my dad he was in an ICU unit, and it was like multiple beds kind of thing. So, and we could only go in two or three at a time to visit him. So we had like a bunch of family in the waiting area, and we were hoping he could hear us because we were laughing, we were talking, we were reminiscing. We had people coming in from the hallway saying, "Just checking to see what the party is about in here." But we knew that that's what he would want. Like,
yeah.
he wouldn't have wanted us to sit there. So when the time came to,
Yeah.
because we unhooked everything, when that time came, there were six of us around his bed, holding his hand, talking to him, and it was okay. It was good. I mean,
Yeah.
I would rather have him here with me,
Of
but
course, of course, yeah.
yeah.
So also too, I wanted to bring up something with you. I've talked with other people over the years about this strange phenomenon that I have found in. I've had three super close family members pass away. The first one would have been my mother many years ago, and I remember this 3 days before her passing. She kind of like she was very ill, but all of a sudden she woke up one morning and she was acting perfectly normal, and she seemed healthy, and and it gives you hope, and everything's fine. 3 days later, she died. Same thing happened with my uncle, same thing happened with my brother. Now it's like just before what is that strange phenomenon? It's like they a couple of days, like 2, 3 days before they pass, they all of a sudden come back, even if they're super sick, like my brother was very, very sick. He was, like, pushed beyond, his feet were black and everything, but he just woke up one day, like, "I'm hungry, I want a sandwich, get me a deli sandwich." And he's calling people on the phone, and then it gave everybody hope, only for him to sort of slip in right after and then slowly drift away.
Hmm.
So, have you encountered that? And do you have any take on that?
Um, so I have, yeah, and
Mm,
it seems that it's the person who is. Oh, I have one of my cats here. The person is trying to um, get things done. Finish things, say goodbye,
mhm,
um, and just have that extra. And it is very deceiving,
mm,
and you do get that hope.
mm,
But that's you, like you said, that's usually when you can tell that it's gonna start going
yeah,
downhill.
okay,
But yeah, it seems like unfinished business.
mm. Or
So they can make those phone calls, they can talk to the people that they feel they need to talk to, and then it's just yeah, and then they can go peacefully.
well, I always wondered if maybe they kind of got an inkling because they're so close to the spirit of where they're going. That's the way I always saw it. It's like, oh, they're super happy. It's like when you just got your itinerary for your travel trip and you're like really happy, and
Yeah.
it's like because even it did happen with a friend of mine years ago who died suddenly in an accident. Same thing happened like 3 days before. There was no, he was 26 years old, but he called me up on the phone. We were chatting after we had not, ever had a chat like that, and he was so happy and so excited, and then 3 days later, he died in a car accident. So,
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe it's that sort of spirit getting in touch with the future and knowing or getting excited about where they're going. So that's why they're so happy. That's kinda my take on it. So,
That's beautiful.
yeah.
That
It
is absolutely
seems like
beautiful. Yeah.
wherever it is they're going, they're super happy, but they're really stoked about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly.
Mhm.
And yeah, who knows? Like, I mean, that would be a beautiful thing. Absolutely. So, you're more peaceful and you know where you're going and it's not as scary for you.
Mhm.
It still is for family because they don't know. But
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's very alarming to the family because it's like, "Well, I know you're going somewhere and I can't go with you, so I'm very alarmed about."
yeah, yeah. And
Uh,
why are you feeling better? Should we call the doctor? And
right?
yeah, and then shortly after yeah, is usually when they die.
And what are your thoughts on life after death? Like, I've done a lot of study on the people who died and came back to life and stuff, and all the stories that they've had to tell across the globe. So, all similar stories. Do you believe that there is something beyond the physical, like,
For me personally,
yeah,
I do.
mm,
I'm a spiritual person. I've I have an indigenous background, so I follow that. And I believe that we're tied to everything. So, you know, how can you explain that when when you're having those down days and you need that boost and all of a sudden I find that dime? How can you explain that? Or,
right,
you know,
okay.
I'm in my backyard with the horses and all of a sudden a dragonfly comes and there's no real place for a dragonfly to come from,
Mhm,
right? So
yeah.
I absolutely believe that there's something.
Yeah, I get that. I've had the same experience, only in my family, it was always the bird. So,
Oh, okay.
the bird would come, and just this past summer, this magpie followed us home and sat on my fence for the longest time, chirping away, was talking, wouldn't stop talking to me. I'm like, I wish I could speak magpie, but I just don't. I'm not sure. So I named her Maggie, and she hung around for about a week. She left, and I don't know, but she was here for a reason. I think she had some.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean too, and looking out for stuff like that, right? Because a lot of people would just say, damn magpie, like
Yeah,
shoo. But it's
yeah,
like, no, definitely here for a reason. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, and I think nature ties us to everything. I'm so into that because I've had so much experience where, I've had these great spiritual moments being in nature and being around. If you just take the time to live in the moment and observe them, the most amazing thing. And when you're in your darkest moment, I believe that's when the loved ones come to us and give us a sign that they're there, they're around, they're trying to comfort you or let you know. There have been times when I've been so intensely grieving, and all of a sudden a sign will come, and it's like it makes me feel better. Sometimes it's a song, the radio's playing in the background, and then the song will come on, and I know that was a message because that was the person's favorite song or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
They
absolutely.
communicate in so many ways. We're all energy and we are all connected. As much as some people think that we're not, we absolutely are. Everything is energy, including the animals, the trees, and everything around us. We
Hmm.
are all connected energetically. And
Yeah.
on this note, I'm going to, like I mentioned to you, the chat. Do you have the chat up, Linda?
I do. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So if any of you have any questions to direct to Linda, go ahead. This is my bathroom break, so she's going to pay attention to the chat and answer your questions as best as she can. Be right back, Linda.
All right. All right. So if anybody has any questions, absolutely. Or any stories that you want to share, I'm always opening to listening to everybody's stories. Oh, how old is your grandson? 3 years old. Yeah. And that's another thing um that's looked at, that because young infant or um sorry, my dog's just here, but young people are said to be able to see spirits and to see people who've died because they're still so innocent and they're not jaded. So I would absolutely believe that he would be seeing him. And does it comfort him? Is he scared when he sees him, or is he okay? Very perceptive, yeah. Do you think past on loved ones can visit you in your dreams? Again, I think so. That they come and visit you in your dreams. Absolutely. Um, do you need a therapy background to become a death doula? No, you don't need a therapy background with a death doula. So you're there to be with the person on their journey. You're not there to do any sort of counseling or anything. If you do have a therapy or counseling background, um, you can go beyond that and do like psychosocial or do grief and bereavement. Um, but as a death doula, like, no, you don't need any therapy counseling background. Past.
Oh, that's cool. Bye, Ninja. Yeah, she's just leaving the chat, so you and Reina take over. Just filling in my mods, but okay. Getting back to the course for Death Doula, how long does it take to become one?
The course that I took was 4 days,
Yeah.
4 full days,
Okay.
and it was done, yeah, over a weekend, and it's intense. Like I said, I took it 2 or 3 months after my mom died, and actually the instructors couldn't believe that I was there. But it was I had to do it. I had to be there.
Did you
Um,
find it helped with your grieving of the loss of your mom to do this?
It did.
Oh,
It did because I was talking again with people who knew, who got it, who I could tell my story to again.
yeah,
Because it wasn't a pleasant death at all. So, and the afterwards wasn't very pleasant either. But so yeah, so I got to tell the story again, and it was nice to be able to do that in a setting where I was also learning how to help people.
right.
So yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's incredible. Um, like, do you find, I guess, like I had mentioned before, it must be pretty fulfilling work knowing that you're actually providing this service for people at the most some of the most important time in their life that they will ever have to deal with this. I'm sure you're a relief to family members, to spouses and stuff, taking over that thing of doing the practical stuff for them, right? So I'm sure.
It's yeah, and
Yeah,
and I found like a lot of families do want to do it themselves, and sometimes like family member people who are dying that want to die at home.
mm,
Um, the family members try so hard to make that happen, to fulfill that dream.
yeah,
Sometimes, unfortunately, that it can't because either their pain is too much or just medically it's not possible.
right,
So then they transition into the hospital, and family members, it's interesting, they feel lost then because they've just gone from helping, doing everything to
right,
now sitting there watching, the nurses, the doctors come in and do their thing.
right,
So it's finding things for them to do, meaningful things. So whether it's, getting a cloth and helping to wipe their foreheads, or
yeah,
getting water, or, just doing those little things so that they feel like they're still doing something.
right, right.
Yeah.
And I guess it must be a really big relief to those who don't have a big family. Like, say it's just one person, then at least you're there to be hands on to help guide them in their time of grief. So
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
huge and that's really important because not everybody has a big family around them, at those end stages. And do you work, like, everywhere, or, like, do you only work there for the death doula stuff, or do you travel, like, to other places
Oh
too?
no, I would travel. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So if somebody in, a neighboring town needed a death doula, you can do that, you can go travel and just be
Hmm.
there, as long as the person is at home and stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. That's
Yeah.
really. You
And
seem a lot, sorry, but you seem a lot happier than, you were back 5 years ago when we first met. You were just, it's not that you were unhappy, but you were just sort of searching for something, and it definitely seems like whatever you were looking for, you definitely have found, and there's a certain peace about you now that, you know.
yeah. Oh, I definitely, I'm enjoying this immensely.
Oh,
Like I said, the people that I'm working with, the clients, the patients, the families, um, even the grief and bereavement therapies afterwards are wonderful. People open up and they want to still honor their loved one that's died, and if I can help them do that, and if I can help them find meaning, so that they can figure out who they are in the world now without their loved one, it's a blessing. It's I'm so grateful to be a part of that.
well, exactly. Like, I can't imagine any more fulfilling work than to do that. This is, as humans, when we're going through the loss of a loved one, it's one of the worst times of any human's life, right? So you get to be there, to be that person. And with that said, though, what are the most challenging aspects of this job that you find? Like, what are the challenges you've encountered along your journey in this?
Um, there are still people who, like the ones who haven't quite accepted that they're dying. That's, getting them to transition and work through that. That's tough. That's the emotional part that still gets to me because, I see their medical records. I hear what the doctors are saying,
Yeah.
and they're just not quite ready to come to terms with that. And then like the grieving, going through the grief process, just how angry some people can be, and that's totally justifiable. It's totally it's part of the grieving process,
Absolutely.
but it's helping the and it's some people's just their default button
Mhm.
is anger.
I agree, yeah.
But it's helping them work through the
Mhm.
why, and then again finding that meaning. And when you're coming in right after their loved one has died, it's like, no, I am not talking to you about this. I am not ready, and I have to respect that.
Yeah. Okay,
So
so you're there after the person has passed, you come in and you're trying to talk to or console the loved one.
it's the bereavement part of it. So just helping them understand grief and what that's going to possibly look like for them, because we all grieve differently. So
Mhm.
there's no set in stone way that you're going to grieve. I know people are very familiar with this with the stages of grief,
Mhm.
and that's very, that applies, but we all do it differently, and there's no linear way that you should do these stages,
Mhm.
or it's completely different. So you could skip one, you could stay in one for too long, you could, there's no right or wrong way to grieve.
Wow.
The only time I would be worried
Mhm.
is if someone just didn't admit their grief and just kept going on
Yeah.
stoically through life, just not even addressing their grief, because you
That's
never know how it's going to come out. Yeah.
yeah, then they're in denial, and that's not healthy for. Have you ever had a situation that made you emotionally, like, break down, start crying when you were dealing with a certain patient or anything like that? Or something was so difficult or so challenging that it was hard for you to deal with?
I've had moments where I've come close, and a couple of the times it was with those couples who have been together for a million years, and they just know each other so well. They're finishing each other's sentences, and I can just feel the love in the room, and the looks that they give to each other, and those are the ones that get me. Those are the ones where, like I said, and you know what? If I did cry in front of them, I'd be okay doing that. I just, you know, um,
Because
it's
I think they
genuine.
realize at that point that it's a sad situation. You're a human being, you're not a machine, so, of course, you're gonna be feeling for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I had one lady, um, when I was leaving their place after a visit. She took my hand and she thanked me for being there now. While he was still there, she said, because I'm gonna need you when he goes.
Right.
And that's when I said, absolutely. And I walked away, sat in my truck for about 5 minutes before I left.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's like I said, such it's such humbling work.
Yeah.
Extremely humbling work. Yeah.
It's raw right to the very core, right?
Yes.
You're dealing with, like I said, the most tragic things that humans will ever encounter is that.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to deal with children, like end stage children?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Oh,
actually have one on my client list right now.
mm,
And it's even with this little one, she's the mom is amazing, and to be invited into this journey with them, is so grateful. She's got two older daughters, and to be able to sit with them and to learn from them as well, because these two daughters, I shouldn't say older, they're um, like 10 and 9, 10 and 8, I think.
mhm.
So just sitting with them and enjoying time with them is, it's extremely sad that their baby sister is dying, but they're strong. They are very strong girls.
And how old is the young one, the one that's passing?
Year and a half.
Oh, a year and a half. My goodness.
Yeah.
Does she realize? Does she understand what's happening to her at that age?
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Wow. And who calls you in for this type of death doulaing, for
Well,
lack who
that
calls
one this one is
like
through
it
my social work position.
okay.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm wondering, like, who contacts you? Is it the person, the spouse of the person who's passing or what have you?
It
Or
would,
do
or
they
you know what? Because if they would, if they would bring me in, like as soon as possible, could be the person that's dying.
mm,
It could be a family member,
mm,
whoever, yeah, whoever feels that they could use the extra support. D Get in touch with me, and I come and meet with them and figure out, where they are. And
mm,
that's always what I have to remember as well. I need to start where they are. I can't come in with my own agenda. I can't come in with my own, with my own preconceived notions of, oh no, you need to be doing this and this and this.
right,
Because lots of people will look at you and say, no, maybe
yeah.
not in those words, but yeah.
And how
So
far in advance should someone contact you? Like, as soon as the terminal diagnosis is in, they should reach out, or should they wait till towards the end? Like, is there
You know what? The sooner the better. Just
oh,
to help, figure out what's needed, and if they do have to get whatever paperwork done, they can do that while they're still, relatively healthy and able to have that control. And that's a huge thing as well. They just to give them that control so that they feel like it's their journey,
yeah,
and
exactly,
I'm just along to walk beside them if they allow me to.
right. Have you
Yeah.
ever encountered someone who brought you in and then changed their mind in the middle of it and just said, "I can take it from here," or
Yeah,
if they
and you know what? That's okay too.
yeah,
I'm always there. I will always say,
yeah,
if you ever need me, you've got my number. Um,
mhm,
Give me a call. I'm here. So there's never a time that I would ever turn anybody away who I've been working with.
yeah. So sometimes they just sort of need you in at the beginning and then well, okay, well, I'll take this. Maybe they'll call you back right at the very end or something like that.
Yeah, or family members, or yeah, yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Wow.
And too, it's like we're talking about kids. So we remembering too that kids grieve differently than we do. So I've been working with some kids who, they're amazing. They really are. They're so resilient, and they're so, it's um yeah, they make me laugh, and that's great. Like,
Yeah.
kids are just very cool.
Yeah. It seems
But
like
it's rem-
you have a different sort of perspective on death than adults do. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe because they're closer to where they came from, the other side. They're closer to it. They understand things from a spiritual perspective better than adults do. I'm not really sure why that is, but I
and
do.
and it could be, and it's developmental as well. So whatever stage, whatever emotional development stage they're at,
Mhm.
that plays a huge part in it as well. So I mean, a young girl who loses her dad may not will be grieving, obviously,
Right.
but you might not see it as an adult would. So if
Mhm.
me losing my dad later in life like I did, well, yeah, you're gonna see it.
Mhm.
um but with her, you might see it during drive, when when she's learning how to drive, or graduation, wedding. That's when you may see
Yeah,
those that grief
that's
still come out.
very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and then maybe even all the moments in between when, she's going to sleep at night wishing that she had a dad there and, because she lost her dad when she was young. Those kinds of things for sure. But maybe she's never saying anything. She just want to make an issue out of it. It was a long time ago and so forth. But you're right, the walking down of the aisle, where's my dad? Traditionally, it's the father, the father of the bride and the bride dance at the wedding and those kinds of things. And
Yeah,
that
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
kinds of come out. Wow. It's just I don't know, it's phenomenal. I think you're a very, very brave soul to go into do what you do. And I think that, you coming on this podcast and letting everybody in the world see you, um, and just how well adjusted you are. And so, it's like I mentioned before, you seem so much more lighter spiritually and happy. It's like you found your niche in life. So you're doing something so important, and I feel that that should inspire a lot more people to get into that field, and if not even just that field, but opening up the conversations of these
Yeah.
kinds of things
And
because
and too, like, it's a lot of, I mean, even if a death doula is not what you wanna be, if,
Mhm.
volunteering in a for a palliative care or hospice, or just to even go and sit with somebody, you don't have to say anything, you don't have to, you can't, obviously, you can't fix anything,
Yeah, yeah.
but just to be that presence there, be that energy there, just sit there, and if they wanna talk, just be that ear to listen.
Mhm.
That's huge, and especially, like, for family members as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, like, caregiver burnout, so even just giving that caregiver that opportunity to just go
Mm.
outside even and just take that
Take
breather
a break.
that they might need to re-energize and then come back in, like, that's huge, and it means so much to people when
Mhm.
they have that extra support.
Yeah, it is. It's very important work. I'm glad it's becoming more mainstream and there's more people getting into this field. Very much needed. And I think it's something that, should have happened probably a long time ago, right? If
Yeah.
there was birth doulas many years ago, they should have figured about the other side, right?
Well,
Because
and, really, like, it's only been since colonization, right? Since, we started bringing our sick into hospitals, right? That,
yeah.
and so that's kind of what made it more scary, because now kids didn't see their grandmas and grandpas, they didn't see them dying. They just, now they just went to the hospital and, no, well, they died, but they didn't know what that was. um so it kind of made it a scary taboo thing.
Mhm.
So, bringing it back into the public, bringing it back and
Mhm.
talking about it, and letting kids go to funerals. Like,
Yeah.
don't
Mhm.
shield them from it. Letting them, if they can, like, give them the choice to go and see their loved one in the hospital, or in their hospital bed in the house. Like, give them that choice. Don't make it a scary thing. And use the proper language, use the proper terms of they've died, or they're dying. Don't say they've gone away or they've gone to sleep, because
Yeah.
holy crap, what if I go to sleep? Am I going
Yeah.
to wake up? Like,
Right?
am I going to come
Exactly.
back? So, because kids are very literal.
Yes, exactly. As a matter of fact, my friend Mama Bear is in the chat. Her and I were talking on FaceTime last week, and we were talking about that prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord myself to if I should die before I wake. She says, when I was a kid, that scared the hell out of me because I kept thinking if I go to sleep, because like you said, kids are very literal, and it's true. I remember being when I first learned that prayer, I was like, does that mean I could die in my sleep? Right? Kids are so literal and it's so scary. And again, your point about telling them the truth. I remember my nephew when my very young nephew at the time, who was very attached to the German Shepherd I told you about, who
Mhm.
we had to put down. So I remember telling him because he came over to my house and he asked me, "Where's Hudson, the dog?" And I said, "You know what? She's gone to heaven." And so he said, "Oh, really?" He says to me, "How'd she get there?" Right? It's like, what
Yeah.
do you say to that? Because it's true, kids are very literal, and you have to make sure that you make your point clear. They
Yeah.
passed on. See, obviously, when you're talking to little kids, you have to put things in more delicate terms or more
Oh, absolutely. Kid appropriate. Yeah,
right, kid
absolutely.
appropriate, exactly. But I agree with you. They should be told the truth, and
Yeah. And
um,
that's another thing why I love animals. I've always had animals. My parents tried to tell me that a couple of our dogs went to the farm. They tried. I think I was a little bit smarter at that age. I'd like to think I was. Um, but with my girls, you know my girls, right? And I mean, they speak their mind, which I appreciate most days.
Mhm.
Um, but I've always had animals, and they've always been a part of their life and of their death.
Yeah.
And when my older daughter was really young, we had fish, and we had they were cool little miniature lobster things. And so whenever they would die, we'd flush them and say goodbye. And so I had one of my cats that got really sick, and I had to get her put down.
Mhm.
So Kira came with me to the vets, and I can't remember. She wasn't very old, but she talking, and so she came with me to the vet to pick up because I got the ashes. So she came and picked up the ashes with me, and she said, "Nope, nope. This was before that. This was when we were going to get her euthanized." So she said, "Mom, after we put Toto down, like after she dies, are we gonna flush her?"
That's all she knew was the
And
flushing.
that was the absolute. Those were the words I needed to hear because it's that moment you're
Mhm.
putting your animal down and
Right?
right, and that's exactly what I needed to hear. And I'm like, oh, no, no, no.
No, 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 we're not flushing her. We're
Yeah, no,
burying her.
yeah,
And then that's when you gotta separate this is what we do for fish and this is what we do, because again, kids are very literal, so you have to explain it totally to them.
yeah.
So how are your girls doing, by the way? How's, Quinn? She had an accident recently, didn't she? How is she doing?
Yes, my accident-prone children, she's good, she's
She's
good.
good, okay.
We wouldn't have it any other way with with the horses and their riding and,
Mhm.
the dogs, the cats, the goats.
Oh, yeah, you have a virtual farm over there. And
It
by the
really
way,
is.
Tony and I, when the weather gets nicer, we'll take the trip over to your place. We wanna ride the horses again. To the people in the chat, Linda was the one person that could get me on a horse after many, many, many years. 5 years ago, I went to, her place. Oh my gosh, I love your horses. They're so nice. Your animals are awesome. All of your animals, they seem to have that great energy of you and the girls, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Well,
only you guys only you and your daughters could have convinced me to get on that horse again. It had been so long, and I had a great time. I wanna come back again, and
absolutely, we'll take you to the park. We'll do a trail ride in the park with them. We've got a couple more horses that we can, saddle up.
yes, I noticed that you have more additions, more animals. Keep them coming. I just love the
Oh,
animals,
yeah.
love the atmosphere in your home, and now that you're doing this as well, Linda, it's just you're a blessing for people at a time when they really, really, really need somebody. Like that, like I said, there is no worse time for humans than when we are grieving, whether we're grieving because we're the one passing or whether we're grieving because someone that we love dearly is passing. And to have someone like you be jump on board and be caring and offer that is it's like it's priceless basically. It's
Thank you. I appreciate that, but yeah, and it's also the people that I work with that allow me to do that.
who's
And be able
behind
to.
who's behind you? Who's behind you?
Oh, oh, that's little P. That's
Yeah. Of course, we're talking about the animals, and animal just has to appear just to make sure,
Yep.
you know.
Oh,
I don't
look at him, looking all handsome there.
he's like, "I just don't want the audience to think you're lying."
Yeah, right.
I
Well,
know.
and you know what? I use them in my therapy as well. Like I said, you do animal assisted therapy, and I have a couple of young girls that come here, and he's right in there. The
Yeah.
dogs are right in there. Guinea pigs are right in there. It's great.
Yeah.
I always tell people if you can't talk to me,
Yeah.
you've got these guys to talk to, and then that's my back door to get in there.
That's true. That's absolutely true. My goodness, like I don't know what else to say. I think we've covered, unless there's anything else you want to add to this, because I think it's been a really good and really productive conversation. And
No, like I said, just remember that if you're supporting somebody, it's not the words you say. It's just being that presence there for them. Listen to them. Don't try and fix it for them. Um, and depending on the situation, just be present. If it's somebody who has lost someone,
Mhm.
just remember that words like they're in a better place or um, they're not in pain anymore. I mean, they're very well meaning, but at that point in time, the person will probably tell you
Mhm.
a better place would be here with me.
Exactly. exact 'cause
So it's
feel
taking that
moment.
the human.
Although that is also true because if a person's been in an incredible amount of pain, they are in a better place. At least the pain is released from them, like we talked earlier about the animal where you're putting them down because they're in pain. So it is true, but on the other hand, you're absolutely right. They when a person is grieving, that's the last thing they want to hear.
Yeah,
They,
timing
they
is everything.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. They want that person right there beside them, right here, right now.
yeah,
So, just let them cry, just let them say whatever they need to say,
yeah.
give them space, let them be quiet if they need to, be okay with that uncomfortable silence that can happen
Ex-
sometimes.
Very true. Silence really is golden. It
Mhm,
really is. And if you do feel like you need to say something, um, then tell a story,
mhm.
like a fun time, a good time that, or a, or ask them, what is your best
Favorite
memory?
memory,
Like,
yeah,
just ask them. Yeah,
true,
just
yeah,
be human in that moment. Yeah.
yeah. And what I do with friends and stuff, like, I usually just pat them on the back and I say, "Look at we're here for you if you need anything, and would you like to talk?" If they say no, then I let them sit in silence and sit with them, and that's basically it. I'm letting them know, establishing I'm here for you, but if you don't wanna talk, that means I'm gonna sit here, but I will sit in silence with you. Because sometimes
Exactly.
people need to be alone in their own thoughts, and when they're ready to say something, they'll say something, so
Yeah, and then allowing them to tell
Mm,
their story
uh,
one time or 100 times. Yeah.
mhm, because that's what it takes, and, you gotta do whatever it takes, right?
Mhm. Yep. No,
Because
exactly.
we have no choice. But
Yeah.
you know what, Linda, I wanna thank you so much for coming on this podcast and sharing your story and talking with me, and I feel it's been a really great conversation, although I had to hold back tears a few times, but, you know
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, and it's, yeah, and it's so important to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. So talking about death and finding out what your loved ones want and
Yes,
letting them
uh,
know what you want is so important.
yeah.
Yeah.
For sure, and if you can't figure that out, you get a death doula in there to be the in between person and let them. Because sometimes I think the people who are passing away may feel more comfortable telling you what they want than spouse, right? So it's like you can kind of be the go-between as well.
Yeah.
Because maybe if, say, for example, somebody is determined to be cremated and their spouse is saying, "No, no, no, I wanna have a grand burial." So, at least if they talk to you and they say, "Please talk to my wife," or whatever, and let her have my like, those kinds of things, so you can kind of be the go-between as well,
Hmm.
right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. It's always good to have a caring and compassionate person and like yourself, like, you're an incredible human being. I mean, I met you 5 years ago, I liked you the moment I met you,
Oh,
and you're intelligent, you're fun to be around, and I'm so happy you're doing this kind of work. I really am.
thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, and if anybody has any questions, I mean,
Yes.
Shady Pines Ranch on Facebook.
Yes,
I'll
join anybody.
gladly.
If you have any questions for, Linda, go onto Facebook and just punch in Linda Lamoreaux. Her name is on the podcast, title. So just punch it in. You can find her on Facebook, and, you can message her there. She's got the Shady Pines, like, this is a lady you wanna connect with if you have any questions for sure about
Yeah.
this. Alright.
Wonderful.
Okay. Well, I'll let you get back to your beautiful daughters and keep posting those pictures on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, say hi to the girls for,
I will. All
good night.
right. Thank you. Good
Okay.
night, everybody.
Alright, much love. Good night. You can
Night.
click out there in the corner, Linda.
Right. There we go. Okay.
Alright, and how did everybody like the podcast? Did you find it interesting? I'm seeing all this stuff in the chat. I missed so much. I'll have to go back in the replay and, tomorrow and check out everybody's, conversations that I missed. Yeah, yeah. Reina, thank you for popping in here. I see Miss Ninja's back. Did you just leave for a minute? Oh, Marky Mark. Hey, Mark, how you doing? Glad to see you here. Nice. How's everybody doing this evening? I know it was a bit of a serious convo tonight, but I think as a convo that needed to happen nonetheless. That's just my opinion on it. But you let me know in the audience here if you thought it was okay, Angela or Amanda, sorry, Ruby's Angel, you missed most of it. It's okay. Anybody who misses the podcast, you can always check it out in the replay. Just go to the channel and to the Star Lordess Tarot channel. Go to the top um, ring at the top there where it says homepage, video, and so forth. And then just click on the live. When you click on the live, all of the prior podcasts are there in replay. You can check them out in there. Oh, it's so nice to see everybody here. A lot of people in the chat here. My goodness, I miss so much. How are you doing, Reina? Did you enjoy the podcast? I know that you had mentioned. Oh, yeah, I see you've already answered my question. You're super psychic, Reina. You already answered my question before I even asked it. But yeah, what about you, Ninja? What did you think of the podcast? Linda is amazing. Yes, yes, I'm hungry now. So, any of you who haven't subbed to I'm Hungry Now, go to his channel and hit the subscribe button because I said so. um, yeah, go ahead. He has an amazing cooking channel. He's got to get back to work on it soon, but he's got a lot of great recipes on there. You want to go check that out. And I guess it's probably about that time to say good evening. This time, if you all noticed, it was a different time. It's usually 7 p.m. Central. We switched it to 6 p.m. Central because I did have a meeting with a couple of my mods, and we decided to switch it to an earlier time, it being Sunday. But just keep in mind that when it comes to these podcasts, they will shift. There'll be times where they're on a Saturday night, there'll be times they're on a Friday night. Always just check on the weekend. Always check before a podcast. You'll see the promo for whomever the guest is and what the date and the time is. It's probably going to be mostly around this time, but it could be on a Friday, it could be on a Saturday. And if I have a guest that happens to be overseas, I may be doing it earlier because of the time difference, right? So there, you may see a podcast that is broadcast on, say, Sunday at 12 or Saturday at 12 noon. So just to be aware of, because I see that it's a lot of you, the same people are showing up week after week, which is good. It's a good thing. We've got a nice little community going here. But by the same token, this is a trial thing. It's in the early stages of this podcast thing. So we need to um, be able to be flexible with it, right? Until we get a permanent time slot and see how things are going. Hello, Brenda. Nice to see you. But yeah, I guess we're going to wrap it up for this evening. Thank you, everybody who came here to enjoy the podcast and enjoy the chat. And don't forget to thank the amazing mods, the moderators on here, the ones in blue. Say a big thank you to them. Love you guys so much. And yeah, you guys have a great week. Tomorrow's Monday. Get ready for it. All right, take care. Much love. And it looks like Star Lordess is signing off. Good night, everyone.